Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Facebook Ad Kingdom podcast. You know what we talk about. I'm your host, Morty Rat. With me is Israel Rats, my co-host, my boss, and the owner of Raspack Media. And today, everybody, is episode 15. Holy Christmas. What's the topic, you ask? The topic is how to get new customers, because we all know that the low-hanging fruit are actually the easy people. These are people who are already engaged with your brand, whether they're already on your email list, maybe they're a website visitor already, maybe there's a previous buyer. Those guys are the people we know, or at least have a higher chance of buying from our website. But what about all those millions, or can I say Israel? Can I say billions? We're gonna go with it.
You could say billions. You and Donald Trump.
Of all those other buyers that we could get into your funnel and purchase more of your products. That is today's topic. So let's start off with the first question. Israel, you ready for this one?
Ready.
You don't look ready.
I'm the readiest that you will get me today.
That's what that face looks like. All right, question number 1. Once you've targeted the obvious audiences, how do you identify new customer segments using Facebook ads? I know there's like a tool called lookalike audiences. So give us just some examples of how somebody could do that.
Absolutely. There's two routes to go here. So I will say that there are many ad buyers that would tell you that anyone that wants can just simply target broad targeting, or now the new Advantage Plus shopping audiences, and let Facebook figure out who the audiences that should be targeted are. And they will find all your new people for you all by itself without you having to do anything. And I do agree that for some very large businesses that already have been running ads for a long time and have a pixel and post regularly and get an organic engagement and get sales organically, that's a strategy that you can probably use for some of these businesses, and you will get results that are good, great. And that's what a lot of ad buyers do. So I do think that there are some cases where you literally could just target Advantage Plus shopping, let it target your warm and cold audiences as Facebook's algorithm sees fit, and then as you scale ad spend, it will find new audiences. But then I personally believe that there is some value in targeting based on other options in the ad platform. I was just listening to someone I've been following for a very long time, like probably over 10 years, and he is now of the opinion that the way he compared this targeting to users is, that I'm about to explain, and I still do, is imagine a kid's treehouse. So you go into the treehouse or like the playground, and on the top of the treehouse, there's sort of one of those car wheels that you're driving. And so the kid up there on the top of the treehouse moving the wheel, that's what he compared this targeting to. That he basically said, like, you feel like you're doing something, but it's not actually doing anything. But I personally have seen results that are considerably better for many, many businesses. Like literally just this week, I ran a test with a client, and I'm finding that these targeting options that we are about to talk about are getting us sales that would not be getting otherwise. So step number 1 is within the ASC audiences, Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, there is an option in the back end of your ad account to set up what's called audience segments. And this is where you tell Facebook your existing warm audiences. So if you have an app, great, you can upload the app data, your website data, all the website visitors, cart, purchase, whatever, and then your email list and your previous purchasers. So what it's supposed to be is engaged audiences are people that know your site, they've been to your website, they're on your email list, and the existing audience is people that have previously purchased from you. And I would leverage both the pixel and the email list so that you don't have anyone getting lost in that shuffle. I have already found that just doing that one-time setup and doing that already helps your Advantage Plus shopping campaigns do substantially better. I saw a client went from like a 3x to a 5x literally just by adding in those audiences, with nothing else having changed, just by doing that. So that's number 1, is for sure to do that. But a note in there is that those audiences actually update the same way your regular audiences update, which means that they have to be used in an ad in the last 180 days for it to remain active. So if you're running only ASC campaigns and you're not leveraging audiences, at some point that engaged and existing audience will stop working and Facebook won't like notify you anything. So you have to actually go and create a campaign that leverages that audience, even to set up, I think, $1, let it spend $1, turn it off so that the audience can continue remaining active. A note in this setting before we go to the manual setup that we're about to go through all the different options for targeting. Within the ASC, there's an option to cap spend based on your existing audiences. And you could check a checkbox and then write in a number. And basically what that will do is Facebook won't spend more than that percentage, whether it's 0% or 97% of the budget on this existing audience. But it doesn't let you do the same thing for engaged audience. So if you're like, I want to run a campaign and I want to reach brand new people, you might consider adding your website visitors, which isn't a previous purchaser, into the bucket of existing audience so that Facebook can exclude that user when running with the existing customer ad spend budget cap. So that's essentially within the ASC campaigns, this new thing that many businesses are moving over to, and we've already talked about at length here. That is how you would target your cold audiences, by essentially having one ASC campaign set to zero remarketing, let it spend, and then you're actually reaching all brand new users. Now, obviously, you can't include into this a lookalike or an interest or whatever targeting because it's an ASC campaign. Now, in the manual ad setup, there are a bunch of ways of targeting cold audiences. Within this group of targeting, there's actually two types of businesses. One, that's a local business that just wants to reach everyone in the area. Like I met last week a company and they sell custom suits, but it's only for people that can physically come to the store. So if you live in another country, it's very hard for you to come to their location and buy from them. So to me, there's a large opportunity to target the people physically around. And it might be worth it to just target everyone there because you don't know who's relevant. And for you to now try to guess who might be a relevant targeting option will actually increase your costs and probably not get you very far. So for like local targeting, I would say just target broad and potentially exclude within the manual targeting your existing customer list, your social following, your video views, stuff like that. So now we're going to discuss what every other business that doesn't already have an enormous amount of pixel data, that isn't specifically targeting local audiences and wants to reach cold targeting. So to me, there's 3 opportunities here for cold targeting. Number 1 is what you already mentioned, which is lookalike audiences. Now, what's crazy and great about lookalike audiences is that you can create an audience one time, a custom audience. Let's just say use Klaviyo for your email marketing. You set up an integration with Klaviyo that anytime a user subscribes or unsubscribes, that is being sent to Facebook. So you never have to think about updating your custom audience. You now go and create a lookalike audience to that group of people, that email list. Facebook will auto update that lookalike audience every 3 to 7 days based on the current data within the Klaviyo audience. That same thing is true with the custom audience for website visitors. So you're targeting an audience, 30 days, website visitors. You create a lookalike to that audience. Guess what? The people that are coming in the last 30 days are different than the people that came 270 days ago in the last 30 days. So Facebook is updating that audience as new users come onto the pixel and as users stop coming to the pixel. And so essentially, as your audience naturally changes over time, Facebook adopts that and helps the lookalike audience edit accordingly based on the current people that are actively coming to the site. Same thing with the Facebook engagement and the video views and the Instagram followers, all of that. You create the custom audience once it's created, the lookalike updates by itself. Now, you might say, well, I've tapped out all of those users. I'm reaching all of those lookalike people. So just so people understand what a lookalike audience is, if I create a lookalike audience to America, Facebook asks me, what percentage lookalike do I want? So that percentage number isn't based on your audience. It's based on the country's audience. So Facebook in America these days has, let's just say, around 300 million active users between Facebook and Instagram. So a 1% audience is somewhere around 3 million users. Now, if you do the same math in Canada, where there's 30 million total people in Canada, even if they have 20 million people on Facebook and Instagram, a 1% audience is only 200,000 people. You do that in the UK, the number is smaller. You do that in Australia, the number is smaller. So obviously for some countries, if you're trying to reach people, you want to have a big audience. A 1% audience might not be good enough. So what you could easily do is create a second lookalike or a third or fourth or fifth lookalike all the way up to 10% of that country. So you upload your email list with 30,000 people. You tell Facebook, hey, I've already tested, a 3% lookalike worked well and a 5% worked well. Let me go up to 10%. That 10% of America is like 30 million people, somewhere around between 28 and 30 million people. And you can create as many lookalikes as you want for each of the custom audiences that we've already mentioned, plus more that I didn't mention. And Facebook will update them every 3 to 7 days automatically based on the current cohort of people within that custom audience. So what that means is you create that audience once. As long as you continue to run ads to that audience, it will continue to update every 3 to 7 days. And Facebook will naturally find new lookalike people within that audience. Now, there are custom audiences that don't update. For example, a regular static email list. So, for example, MailChimp does not have a built-in integration. I'm shocked to say that somehow in 2024, MailChimp has not yet created a way to set up this integration. But even though Facebook and MailChimp literally have a one-click login on the back end in the audience section, it doesn't auto-update. So you go in on May 1st and load an audience on June 3rd when you've gotten however many new users. Facebook doesn't know. So you have to come in and manually upload. Those audiences, the lookalikes, don't update because there's no new people. It's the same group from before. So if you are using mostly that or phone numbers, a list of phone numbers, those don't automatically update and those lookalikes stay the same. But you essentially, in theory, could just leverage lookalike audiences. Those lookalikes will update over time, and continually targeting them will actually reach new groups of people over time as you continue to run ads. So that's lookalikes. The second type of audience that you could target is interest targeting. Within interest targeting, there's thousands and thousands of interests on Facebook, and I'm skipping ahead to a question you're going to ask in the future, which is what tools I use, because this is where I use this tool. There's a tool called Interest Explorer that I've been using now for a very long time. I believe it's somewhere between $100 and $200, one-time payment. And what it essentially lets you do is go into Facebook and see which interests are currently available for targeting for any keyword. You type in a keyword and it tells you that word and overlapping keywords that are related. You type in the word beach and it shows you 30 things that are connected to beach, even if that is the Beach Boys, the band, and that's obviously not the targeting you want if you're looking for the interest of beach. So you go and you play around in there the same way you would Google Keyword Planner. You end up with a handful of interests, and you can upload those interests lists directly from Interest Explorer into Facebook. Facebook will then look at those interests and tell you additional interests that you could add on for targeting. And that's another audience that you are finding new interests, and Facebook takes away, Facebook adds new ones. Facebook also, edits who's in that audience. You imagine someone who has the interest of the Matrix movie, right? It might be different now than it was 20 years ago. So that interest is updating based on how users engage. And the example I give for businesses all the time is Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, which we already got, this is the second shout out of the show, which is quite impressive. Donald Trump has, like 20 something million followers on Instagram, on Facebook. So if you go and you look up the interest of Donald Trump, you might think, the number of people that like his page are going to be similar to that number. No, the number of people that have the interest of Donald Trump is like well over 200 million, if not higher now since I've done this check. So what's the discrepancy between the number of likes on the page and the people that have the interest of Donald Trump? And the answer is that Facebook includes the interest from simply watching a video or reading an article within the Facebook, web browser, or engaging with a post, or commenting on something that has the name Donald Trump in it. that now adds that user to the interest of Donald Trump. And what's cool a little bit is that there's actually a tool within Facebook for you to look up like your ad preferences, and it will list out your interest that Facebook thinks you have, and you can go and edit those. Oh, I don't actually have this interest. I just, commented on this one video once. You could take yourself out of that interest targeting. I would assume less than 5% of users actually do that. But what that does is it means that if a user just happens to be commenting on something, if, I'm sure you've heard people say all the time, oh, I mentioned, some product one time, and boom, all of a sudden I'm seeing ads for it on Facebook. How could that be? It's this ability that Facebook has to see that you've engaged somehow, whether it's through reading a website that has a Facebook pixel on it, that they're scraping the keywords on it. It could be from watching a video that has literally Donald Trump in it, and it doesn't have to say Donald Trump's name on it anywhere. That will allow users to be targeted based on that interest. So you as the business can add these relevant interests to Facebook. That's another way of reaching cold audiences, and that will get you another group that is, in theory, updating regularly within Facebook of interests of cold audiences that you want to reach. Now, the final targeting option is actually two things. One is leaving it totally broad. That is basically telling Facebook, I don't have any specific interest that I want you to target, so just reach the countries that I can sell my product in. If it's only for men or women, just leave it men or women. If it's only for people over a certain age or under a certain age, do that targeting, but then leave out all custom audiences, behaviors, interests, lookalikes. Leave them all out and let Facebook do that broad targeting to find additional cold users. Now, I will tell you that broad targeting will include warm users as well. Facebook, I have a theory that can't really be proven one way or the other, but basically, since iOS 14.5 rolled out, users have the option of opting out of tracking. So that means that if you don't have an iPhone, but I do have an iPhone, if you've chosen to opt out of tracking, Facebook can't now add you to an audience of a custom audience. So I upload my email list, you're on the email list. You've opted out of tracking, I upload the list. It's not going to match you on that email list. But Facebook knows you care about my business because you're on my email list and you've been to my website and you are, you engage with me on social, but you've opted out of tracking. So if I target you through warm audiences, you're opted out. But if I target you broad,
wow,
Facebook somehow finds you because they know that you have this interest and that you engage in this website and that you're on this email list because they have the list. They have your email, so they know, but you've opted out. So business. I actually saw a huge uptick in return from broad targeting after the iOS switch, because in my opinion, it just enabled Facebook to target the user. So I don't know if people know this. It went around a while ago, but if you scroll on Facebook to any ad, there's 3 buttons on the top right of the post, and there's a thing that you could press like, why am I seeing this ad? And you click on it and we'll tell you, oh, because this business is looking to reach men living in whatever country with this interest, right? But one of the things it will say, if I'm targeting email lists, it will say that are on their marketing lists or that are targeted from their Facebook pixel. But
that's public data, you're saying. That's public information.
Right. Well, it's for me as the user to see on any ad that I'm getting, how is this business able to target me? Is it because of the country or my age or some custom audience? But if I've opted out of tracking and I'm seeing this wording that says they're using the Facebook pixel data, then I know that it's not properly excluding me from tracking. So once the business targets broad, Facebook can now say, well, the business targeted broad, right? It didn't target based on the email list. So it somehow magically presented you, the user that opted out, but is on the email list and is on the website and is buying the products.
Because you fit the profile, you fit the interest. We're going to get you.
Somehow magically show up in that broad targeting audience. So that broad audience, to me, is always a worthwhile audience, even if you have a small group of people, even if you don't have a lot of Facebook pixel data. Much like other advertisers, I have seen over the years that broad targeting has gotten considerably better. But then there's a new targeting called Advantage Plus audiences. And I think that these two, even though in theory they're both giving Facebook the reins to do whatever they want, I have found they work differently. For some businesses, the broad, normal, old setup works. And for others, the Advantage Plus audiences broad targeting works better. So I do both. I will run both in the same ad set and let them test against each other. And then whichever one works better, I'll just turn that one on and the other worst performer off. And so that really is all of the targeting options for cold audiences. The one thing I didn't mention is behavior targeting. If you have a specific business that needs to target based on like parents or the job title or the school they went to or a specific interest, a specific behavior, obviously it's worth it. Let's say you have a gift giving company. You could target people with friends or with birthdays upcoming or friends of birthdays upcoming, or, you know, a man that has a friend that has a birthday in the next 7 days. Like there's all these like interesting behavior targeting that obviously are cold audiences to you. Like you don't know them, or a birthday in January. This is all options. Someone in a relationship, non a relationship, single, divorced, you know, whatever, all of those options for targeting. So those are all behaviors Facebook has data on, and you can leverage them for cold audiences. That basically covers the entire spectrum of leaving it all up to Facebook, letting them target appropriately cold and warm audiences in the ASC, to granularly targeting manually based on interest, lookalikes, behaviors, broad and Advantage Plus audiences.
That is an amazing answer, and it covers a lot of ground. So I guess another question, and what I actually find interesting about that answer is it kind of opens up a whole other area of, and I know there's overlap here, but how can we use data to also find new audiences? Meaning a lot of that information right now is based off of just either emails or interests or things like that. But what if I've already run a campaign for my already warm audiences and I've collected a ton of data? How can I now use that data to leverage and find new audiences?
So the audiences I mentioned are all the possible options for audience. So there's not magically going to be another one. But as you run ads, you're teaching your custom audiences, whether that's the pixel data, the email list, the Facebook engagement, that these users are getting targeted and engaging. That is updating the lookalike audience. That is updating the broad targeting, because it's informing Facebook who within your audiences are actually people that are doing the thing that I want. And by targeting people in whichever, you know, campaign objective you're choosing, Facebook's going to find more people like that group. For example, one way to leverage, which as I've said already many times, you said 15 episodes, I assume 15 times already, I've already mentioned that I don't love running link click ads, and I don't love running video view ads, and I don't love running engagement ads. But if you're looking to reach a totally new group of cold audiences, continuing to run the same, conversion campaign objective is going to get you only that sliver of audiences. So if you're at a point where you're spending, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a month in ad spend, and you've really capped out on everyone that there is to reach, leveraging your conversion campaigns, it might be worth setting some amount of budget, not a significant amount, but some amount of budget towards link clicks, video views, engagement, awareness campaigns, for the sake of reaching these cold audiences that otherwise would not fall into your group. Now, I will say again, I don't think that you should do this unless two things. Either you're spending an exorbitant amount of money on ads, or the place you're targeting is so specific that you just only running conversion ads, you're not reaching enough people. Like, I want to spend $10,000 a month, and I'm only targeting this one small city in, Nebraska. And if I only target conversion, I'm only going to reach this really small group. And I just want everyone to know. Great. So take a budget of some amount of money and target everyone else that would not be reached with conversion campaigns. So that is a way of leveraging the data to reach new, colder audiences you would otherwise not reach. But by just running ads, you are informing Facebook's algorithm to update your cold audiences based on the purchases that are coming in, to teach it to show ads to new users. That, in theory, is what the learning stage is, which we could probably have a whole podcast on why I don't know that learning phase does anything or doesn't do anything. I have seen it not help or help many times. But in theory, Facebook wants you to get at least 50 conversions within a week for every ad set, so that it can continue to learn within that ad set how to continue to reach users that will buy from you. So Facebook's algorithm on its own is leveraging the data as you get it in real time to find new users. And as I already mentioned with the lookalike audiences, if you find, wow, 1% is doing great, let me expand out to 3%. That literally is leveraging the data from your pixel to broaden your cold audience and reach more and more users.
Amazing. So I guess here's another, it goes back into testing and budgets, but when I'm exploring getting new customers or new audiences per se, how do I learn which audiences are going to work without burning through, let's say, ad testing budget? What's the smartest way to do that?
So I have found in testing that layering warm and cold audiences together in the same ad campaign somehow manages to get the costs similar whether they're warm or cold. So for example, if you want to run an ad, only your warm audience, you want to run an ad, but you want to split out one campaign warm, one campaign cold, I find that the cost will be drastically different. One will cost $30 and one will cost $10, assuming the warm will do better, but that's not always the case. I have seen otherwise. So you're just assuming you're running one for warm and one for cold, $10, $30. Now, all of a sudden, you take those two audiences and you put them together in the same ad campaign. So one ad campaign, let's just imagine 2 ad sets, one for cold, one for warm. All of a sudden, somehow, Facebook's now magically able to leverage the data from the warm audience and put that into the cold audiences. And now, all of a sudden, you're getting $15 cost per sales on cold audiences that you were not getting before. So somehow, leveraging that setup, you've decreased your costs for cold audience targeting, which really doesn't make much sense because in theory the algorithm should, help you learn across the entire ad account. So I just want to make sure I'm answering your question. So what was this?
It's about budget. How do I not burn through a budget while testing and exploring getting new audiences?
So within the ad account, I had this conversation last week. What if I'm just spending all my money on warm audiences and now 3 months down the line, I haven't nurtured any cold audiences, but I want to continue to get good results in 5 months from now, and I've already, gotten all those low-hanging fruits. What do I do now? So you can leverage a few things. Number one is leveraging ASC campaigns, as I mentioned already, and setting up different thresholds for existing customer bid caps. So you could say, I only want to spend 5% of the budget on warm audiences. The ASC is now forced to spend most of the money on colder audiences. The problem I already mentioned is that it will also reach engaged audience, so it won't totally be cold within the ASC campaigns. Now, if you want to make sure that you are continuing to keep your ROAS high while finding new audiences, you could have one campaign that's just the warm audiences and let it spend and get the return that you expect from those warm audiences, and have a second campaign where I would actually also put the warm, but have a max cap of the ad spend. So basically, like, I'm putting it in the ad campaign to somehow help it, get better results for the cold audiences. I don't, again, understand why this happens, but it is what I've seen. So as long as I see it continue to be true, I will continue testing. You then set it and say, don't let it spend more than 5% of the budget, sort of like exactly what we're doing in the ASC campaign. Right. So it's letting the algorithm spend a tiny bit of money on the warm. Now that's helping the other cold audiences spend. And then I want to go in and see, am I getting the results I'm expecting from my cold audiences? So I have an audience, one ad set for lookalike, one ad set for broad, one ad set for this group of interests, and I'm running each of them. And now I want to be able to dictate, how it spends or doesn't spend. So first I want to let the algorithm do its thing, let it spend accordingly for each group of people. But if after a nice amount of data is spent, let's just say $300 per the ad set, at this point it's spent significant budget. Obviously it depends on what you're selling, but we're just we're in the e-com world selling fashion products. We've spent significant amount. We'd expect some sales. So now you spent that budget and you're reaching the users. Now, at this point, is that performing? So before I'll go and turn the whole ad set off, I'll actually jump into the ad creative that's being run, and I'll see, is one creative sort of milking, spending all of the budget. And maybe the issue isn't the audience, it's that Facebook spent 87% of the ad spend on a creative that doesn't work for this audience. So now I'll go and, again, if it's already spent $300 or something around, obviously each account is a little bit different, let's just say that number, I'll go and I'll pause the ad, and then I'll let the ad set run again for another couple of days in hopes that it then, finds its rhythm and gets the results that are in line with the other ad sets. If I've now been running this test for 2-3 weeks and I'm running this creative and none of the creatives work and the audience isn't working, I'll go and I'll pause that creative within the audience within the ad set so that the other cold audiences can continue to get ad spend and the results that I expect and continue to keep my ROAS. And what I'll do is over time, I'll try testing new campaigns with new creative for that audience to see if that helps find results for that audience. I don't want to say like this audience is dead. It doesn't work, especially for lookalike audiences, right? Like if a 1% lookalike audience, in theory, that means that it should be a really great audience for you based on your email subscribers or previous purchasers or something. So I'm not going to say, oh, I'm writing off this audience. It doesn't work. Let me never use it again. I'll just go and do some creative testing around it to see if I can find something that does work for it in a campaign with a smaller budget for that audience.
Right, but we want to make sure that we're not burning through our testing budget. Like we speak a lot about budgets, and it's a tool just for testing in order to scale. So again, right. I want to make sure that we're not wasting money. How can our listeners really maximize that test budget and not waste it? What do they need to do? What are like the indicators?
So we spoke in another podcast about the 4 metrics I look for in testing. So the first one is your CPM. So now, if I know my CPM, my cost per impression, on average for this type of objective, for these audiences that I'm reaching are around the same, whatever, let's just pick a number, $15 CPM, if that's my normal number. And all of a sudden I'm seeing my CPMs like exorbitantly high for that audience, then I know something's not right. Within the testing, I can now say, I need to change something when targeting this audience to be able to get that CPM down. The next one I talk about is CPC, which is click-through cost per click. And the idea is if I'm reaching that audience and it's the right person, I'm using a lookalike or I'm using my email list or whatever, and then they're not clicking. So what about that ad isn't doing it for that audience? So again, there has to be some testing to figure out within the ad itself, what is it that's wrong about this ad that's not getting the clicks? The next one is a much harder number to get now because Google Analytics has changed a lot, but time on site is a number that will tell you, okay, I'm getting the user to click from Facebook, but then they're not spending the time I want on the site to actually engage with the page that I expect. And that's an important part of testing. Like if you're sending thousands of clicks to your site and then no one's doing anything, for example, when I run link click ads, that's what I see. Users are coming to the site, but then they leave right away. So I'm basically getting these super low quality users to my site. What's the point? What am I gaining from that experience? So I want to know that the users are actually spending enough time to really engage with the landing page. Are they having that time to understand what the offer is? And the final one is the conversion rate. If at this point you've reached the right group of people and they engaged enough to click on the ad and they actually spent the time necessary to convert, now I'm going to look at, are they converting at a rate I'd expect them to? And what's that? Based on all the other people I've sent to this page before. If the conversion rate is let's just a 5% conversion rate, and this is getting a 1% conversion rate, I know something is wrong, that these people aren't working well with this offer. So in this, I can now say, okay, these people, for whatever reason, don't fit in with the other targeting I'm doing, let's just imagine, I'm doing interest targeting, I'm doing lookalike audiences, and I'm getting approximately the same CPM, approximately the same CPC, the conversion rate's around the same for them, but then the broad targeting is, wow, it's totally out there, not at all the same pricing, it's totally off. And so now you know that it is worth it for me in that testing budget to put more and more money into the lookalike and the interest, which should, in theory, happen on its own with the algorithm seeing that. But there's actually an option in the ad set level to go in and set a minimum spend per ad set in a campaign to basically tell Facebook, like, listen, I'm getting results here. I want to make sure it's spending at least $15, $20. And so you are forcing Facebook's hand to spend money there. The one caveat to that is that you have to remember to go check that setup that you've done, because some people will set that up for a short time, forget about it 3-4 months later, and be like, wait, why did the lookalike audience that hasn't gotten results in 3 months spent, the giant amount of money? It's because you set that up, that ad set but minimum spend weeks or months ago and just forgot that you had that set up. So just make sure that you remember that you did that, and go in and turn it off when it's no longer relevant, or Facebook, or the results have changed for that audience. So that's really, during the test period, what I would do to make sure that I'm reaching the group of people that are converting at the same level as everyone else. That's what I want. I want to continually find new users that can convert around the same price I expect when I run ads, so that I could scale ad spend and constantly find new users. That's exactly what the point of the test budget is.
Okay, well, we're now at 36 minutes. I think we have time for 2 more questions. Let's talk a little bit about, and you mentioned this before, just what is the role of creative variation when trying to attract new customers through Facebook?
Yeah.
Do you have to tweak ad creatives to appeal to different audiences? Like, how does that work?
So I'll tell you that Facebook has a new tool within their the ad setup for Facebook Shops. So for users that for businesses that use Facebook Shops, which are currently only available in specific countries. So you upload an image or a video to Facebook as your creative, and Facebook will tell you, hey, we recommend that for your IG Shop ads, you have it send directly to that product page, to this product. But you didn't write the product name anywhere. You don't have a link on your ad going to that product page. So Facebook somehow is able to look at that video or image and know what is in the image or video. They're able literally to tell you the product being advertised in the picture of your ad. And I even uploaded yesterday an image that had a big text on it. It said 15% off, and it was covering a lot of the product. And yet Facebook was still telling me, hey, we think you should run that image ad directly to this product page. And we know it's the product because we could see the image. So it is very clear that Facebook's algorithm is able to look at the creative and say, this is something that is good or bad. So already, just by uploading the creative into the backend, Facebook's already able to do some piece in information that knows what's in the creative. And so now they leverage that data the same way that we've already spoken about interest targeting for users. So they see users engage more with photos than videos. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to show them ads that are photos. But if you only have video ads, they don't have any photos to show that user. So by having a different creative type, that user can now be shown an ad that otherwise would have not have performed as well. So it's always worth it to test images and videos and carousels for this exact reason. Whatever the user might expect as far as a creative type, you should have that available so that Facebook can show it to that user. And that's what they actually created with what's called a flexible ad type, where you can upload videos and images, and Facebook on its own will create the image appropriate for the user. The creative, is it a video? Is it a carousel? Is it an image? Which image should it be? I even heard from a Facebook rep, it looks at the color of the ad and says, your users engage more with pink color ads. We're actually going to promote this one because it has more pink in it than the other ones. This one has blue. Oh, they don't engage with blue ads. So they're going to move more budget over. So that means that
it's crazy.
The very long way of answering is that creative is a huge part of results now on Facebook, because they're leveraging a handful of things. One is they're leveraging what the user does with the creative. Is it based on the type of creative? Number two is they look at what within the creative the users engage with. Is it a product only image? Is it a model with the product? Is it a video that and based on and what that shows you is just how powerful it could be to figure out what creatives work for you and then make more creatives like that, because Facebook's able to look and see like, wow, that creative did well, and now here's 4 more just like that creative.
Right.
Facebook's going to push those creatives because it's already working. It's already doing a good job. So creative's a huge part of this, to the point where you literally could just change one thing at the beginning of a video and it could reach a whole new group of people. I actually heard this from Alex Shamosi. Well, he'll take a performing video that's already working, and he'll just have the person in the video remake 10 versions of the hook. So the video's 99% identical, but just changing the hook at the beginning dramatically changes the result of the ad, because that whatever they're testing that hook. So as opposed to having to go now and replicate an entire new video and try to match it up, you literally are using the same video and only changing the thumbnail, changing the intro, changing the, maybe some like funny thing that pops up at the beginning of the video to get attention from the users. So creative is a huge part even within targeting, because by simply changing what it is you're running ads for, you could dramatically drop your CPMs. You can get higher CTRs, lower cost, cost per clicks, and that will drive users and different types of users based on the content to see the ads and engage with it differently. So creative for sure is a large part of ads, and it has a big effect in who actually gets reached. Not just the type of ad, but what's actually being presented in the ad.
So as an ex-producer, as an ex-creative director on set, what would make sense to me is that when you're planning that day, that photo shoot day, for example, already have in mind, I need all the ad sets from this one day of shooting. So I'm going to get some video clips of the model with the thing. I'm going to get some just hands and model. I want all that variation. And that doesn't cost you anything extra. But that way you could come to your media buyer and say, hey, look at what we got. I got you 250 potential ad sets to work with,
Right.
Do your thing.
The one caveat to that is I find that while ASC campaigns can, in theory, handle 150 ad creatives, the testing won't actually get you what you want from it. So what I prefer to do is start out a test with a handful of creatives, but then have that arsenal of the 200 creatives and just sort of bundle them together and roll them out over time. So let's just say like 5 to 7 new creatives a week. And so you're going to upload those creatives over time and actually let the algorithm test them out without just throwing them all at the wall and seeing what sticks. Because I personally think that if you do that, what will end up happening is Facebook will choose a winner way too early. And they'll just sort of run all the ad budget to that handful of 2-3 ads and never really test 90% of the ads that you've put in there. So
and the rest get dumped, basically.
The algorithm just would say like, oh, this one got a comment, and then let's put all the budget on it. And so I've seen I had a client where they uploaded, we up to I think like 15 creatives for the campaign, and one post got a single comment that was just like nothing really to do with the ad. And then Facebook was like, wow, this one has a lot of engagement. Let's have it spend 70% of the ad budget. So I find that by putting in new creative over time, you're able to continually, upkeep that result while still testing new creatives. And obviously, as time goes on, you might end up turning that what used to be that best performer off because you've now created a new, better performer. What it also means is that you get new data for the next time that you're going to launch. So if you are going back to studio and you now have a new best performing ad, you can go and have someone replicate it with another product or a new model with the same product or whatever it is, because you found, as I did this testing, these 2-3 creatives, rose to the top. Let me leverage that information for future ads that I'm going to be creating.
All right. Well, now we're up to the last question, then we're going to have to end here. Can you give us an example of one of your clients, and if you're allowed to say their name, even better, of a strategy where you took them from, they basically maximized their warm audiences and they hired you to say, we need to get a lot more people from the cold area, from the cold arena. Can you give us an example of something you did that worked significantly?
Absolutely. So this is a while ago, but the results, spoke to themselves for quite a few years after that. Back in 2020, I was approached by a company in the swimwear space. And when I met them, they were only running ads to 2 audiences, their Instagram engagement 30 days and their website visitors. Their 3 audiences: Instagram engagement 30 days, website visitors 14 days, and their email list. That was it. Those 3 warm audiences. And the reason was because they had come to their previous ad buyer and said, we have a budget of $5,000. And he said, oh, okay, that's great. You should target all of that ad spend to your best performing audiences. And he did that and got really great results. And I came to them and said, what does it mean to have a budget, right? Like we discussed this. What does it mean to have a budget? And they're like, well, we want to spend this amount per month. I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. If you're making money, the money's made you money. You should put the money back in and make more money. And they said, okay, who would you target if you had more money? And I said, exactly what we just spoke about: interest targeting, lookalike audiences, broad targeting, additional custom audiences bigger than just 30-day Instagram. We can go up to 365. We can do video views 50%. We could do, Facebook messengers or Facebook followers. All of those audiences, created all of those audiences, and we're able to scale their budget from $5,000 a month in ad spend to, I think our biggest month we spent like $645,000 in a single month in ad spend, leveraging all of those cold audiences and warm audiences that they weren't targeting to get them results in, as high as 13, but like basically somewhere in the ballpark of like 6 to 13x return based on what we were spending and what year it was, for that company, leveraging all the different types of targeting that we could, all of the creatives types that we could. We uploaded creative very frequently, to leverage exactly what we talked about, a mix of carousel, image, video. We would upload every single week to carousels, videos, and images, so that we would be having this nice mix of people constantly finding new users. We actually, like, at one point launched a whole new list of countries we weren't targeting before. So all of those audiences allowed us to scale spend in a huge way, and the business went from making like $7-8 million a year before we met to $30-40 million a year, in the last year or two. So that's what it looks like when you've leveraged all of the appropriate targeting, whether it's warm audiences or cold or lookalike or interest, to be able to find the right users while testing new creatives and finding what works. And that's we made lots of, I think altogether something like over $150 million together, doing this strategy that we just spoke about.
Amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, if you're an e-com brand owner, you're a marketer, know that there are a lot of cold audiences out there waiting for you to target them and buy your products. It is attainable. It's doable. You just need the right media buyer to make it happen.
And Morty knows a guy.
I know a guy. I met one guy. Speak to him frequently. Okay, thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope to see you guys on the next episode. Feel free to comment. Let us know any topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to take us up on our offer for a free media account roast. It's not going to be a roast. It'll be polite, but we'll give you actionable information. I can promise you that. And stay tuned for the next episode. We will see you on the next one.
Peace.